Hey guys, today we'll be learning our third different way to solve systems of equations. And today you're going to be learning a style called elimination. And what that means is that you'll basically be eliminating one of your variables from the equation so that you can solve for the other. Okay, now there are 5 steps to solving for elimination. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and skip down to the bottom here and let's write down these 5 steps. Okay, so step 1. Okay, so step 1 is to set up equations. Set up equations with like terms in columns. And we'll go over that here in a little bit. So set up equations with like terms in columns. Step 2. Step 2 is going to be multiply. Okay, so multiply if needed. Multiply if needed to get opposite coefficients. Multiply if needed to get opposite coefficients for one variable. Okay. Multiply if needed to get opposite coefficients for one variable. Third one. Okay, the third one is going to be add equations. Okay, so you're going to add equations and solve for variable that's left. Okay, you're going to add the equations and then solve for the variable that's left. Okay, I know this is a lot to write, but make sure you get it all down. Okay, step 4, 2 more. Step 4 is to plug your answer back in. Plug answer back in. And solve for other variable. Okay, plug answer back in and solve. And number 5, your last one, write answer as ordered pair. Okay, so here are your 5 steps. Make sure you get all 5 of these written down. They're very important to know. Okay, let's try a few examples. All right, so number 1 up here, we know that our first step is to set up equations with like terms and columns. So what that means is that you have several columns here. Okay, you should have your x's in one column, you should have your y's in another, and whatever's left on the other side of the equation. So these should all be lined up, and that is the case. So step 1 is done. Step 2 says, if needed, multiply to get opposite coefficients for one variable. And what that means is that on these equations, you're looking for one of the variables to be, or the coefficients to be the same. So coefficients, remember, are the numbers in front of variables. You're looking for one of them to be the same. Well, these guys are the same. Okay, but one of the qualifications is that you have to have the same variable or the same coefficient, but opposite signs. Okay, and these are opposite. So because that's true, we can move to step 3. You're going to add the equations and solve for the variable that's left. Okay, so let's go ahead and add these equations. So you're going to add our columns. So what is 4x plus 2x? Well, if you add 4x and 2x, that's 6x's. And then if you add 3y and negative 3y, those cancel out or eliminate, and they go away. So they just go away. And 16 plus 8, that's going to be 24. Okay, so after you do that, you add the equations, then you just solve for what's left. Okay, so we now have 6x equals 24. That's a one-step equation. So divide each side by 6, and those 6's cancel out, which gives us x equals 4. Okay, so that gives us the first half of our ordered pair solution. Now we have to solve for y. Okay, so your fourth step is to plug your answer back into the equation. So you can plug it into the top one or the bottom one. But let's do the top one. Okay, so you have 4x plus 3y. And that all equals 16. Okay, so let's plug our x into where the x is in our equation. So instead of the x, you're going to have a 4. So we have 4 times 4 plus 3y, and that all equals 16. All right, so if we continue on here, 4 times 4 is 16. So we have 16 plus 3y equals 16. And then undo addition with subtraction. Those 16's cancel out. So we now have 3y equals 16 minus 16, which of course we know to be 0. And then divide each side by 3. And so our y ends up equaling 0. So we have our two solutions now. We know that x was 4, and we knew that y was 0. And so there is our solution solved by elimination. And we're going to try 2 more examples real quick, and actually 3 more. Okay, let's try this guy. Remember, we got to get them lined up, which we do. And then once we do that, we got to find one with same coefficient but different sign. So on our x's, we have same coefficient, but we have a different sign. Okay, so let's go ahead and add our equations. 3x plus x is 4x. The y's negative 4y plus 4y, they cancel out. And if you do all that, then you got to add these guys. 10 plus negative 2 is 8. And now we can simply divide for x. Okay, so undo multiplication with division. And those x's cancel out. And we have x equals 2. Okay, now that we have that, we can go ahead and solve for y. And let's choose this equation down the bottom to plug back in. Okay, so we have x plus 4y, and that all equals negative 2. So now we know that instead of x, we can put a 2. So let's plug that in. So we have 2 plus 4y equals negative 2. Okay, so if we go ahead and subtract on both sides, those 2's cancel out, and we get 4y equals negative 4. And lastly, divide each side by 4. And that would give us a y of negative 4 divided by 4, which is negative 1. Okay, so since we've found both solutions, we know that our x was 2 and our y was negative 1. So we have our ordered pair solution that works for this system. All right. Okay, we're going to skip over this one, but remember on substitution, on this kind, you can simply set these guys equal. Okay, so there will be a problem where you can do that in your homework. Okay, so there's a couple of examples. We'll try a few more on the next page. Okay, before we move on, I got a corny joke for you. Here it is. What kind of crackers do firemen like in their soup? Think about it. Think about it. Firecrackers. All right, we're going to go over a few more examples, and then we will call it good. All right, we're going to mark through a couple of them. We're not going to do this one. We're not going to do that one or that one. And we'll do numbers 6 and 8. Okay, so our first step is to go ahead and decide if they're in right columns, and they are. Second step is to go ahead and see if they have the same coefficient and different sign. Well, we have the same coefficient, okay, but they are both positive. When you add them together, one's not going to eliminate. Okay, so to fix that, you have to multiply by a number that will make one of those the same coefficient, but a different sign. Now, when you look at this, what number could you multiply your x by to get the opposite number? So if I have a 2 here, I'm going to want a negative 2 here. Well, what can I multiply 2 by to get negative 2? Well, of course, you can multiply it by negative 1. So we're going to multiply each of the columns by negative 1. So 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. Negative 1 times 3y would give us negative 3y. And 12 times negative 1 would give us negative 12. Okay, so this now becomes your equation. We don't have to use this guy anymore. Okay, so now that we have them in the same column, we have a coefficient that's the same but opposite sign, we can go ahead and add these. Okay, so we have 2x and we're going to add negative 2x, that cancels them out. If you have 4y's and you add negative 3, that just gives you y. And if you add 10 and negative 12, that gives you negative 2. So that did our job really easily. We've now found y, and we need to go ahead and plug that guy in. So let's use that top equation up there, that 2x plus 4y equals 10. And we're going to plug in, instead of y, a negative 2. Okay, so let's rewrite it. We got 2x plus 4 times negative 2, and that all equals 10. Okay, so if we distribute that 4 and the negative 2, you have 2x minus 8. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, and that all equals 10. Now we have a two-step equation, and we can go ahead and solve that guy. So undo subtraction with addition. So 2x equals 18. And then divide each side by 2, so our x equals 9. Okay, so now that we know our x and y, we can write our ordered pair solution, which is negative 2, 9. Okay, so there's another quick example for you. We're going to try another one just like that. Okay, so we're going to skip 7, we're going to skip 9. Let's try number 8. Okay, so our first goal is to get them in the right columns, and they appear to be so. Then we need to look for a coefficient that's the same but has opposite signs. And well, we see the y has the same coefficient, but it also has the same signs. Okay, so I need one of these to be a positive 4, and I need the other to be a negative 4. Well, let's make the bottom a negative 4. Well, what do I have to multiply 4 by to get negative 4? Well, we need to multiply by negative 1 again. Okay, so I'm going to multiply that entire column by, or that entire row by negative 1. So negative 1 times 2x would give us negative 2x. Negative 1 times positive 4y would give us negative 4y. And negative 1 times 10 would give us negative 10. Okay, so just like last time, this row is gone, and we're going to add these columns up. Okay, so 3x plus minus 2x would give us just x, and 4y plus negative 4y, those would cancel out, so they'd go away, and 12 plus negative 10 would give us 2. Okay, so our x would in fact be 2 this time, and now we can just go back and plug in for y. So let's use this top equation, and we'll plug in 2 for x. So I'm going to rewrite this. So we have 3x plus 4y equals 12, but instead of x, I'm going to put a 2. So we have 3 times 2 plus 4y, and that all equals 12. Okay, so that gives us 6 plus 4y equals 12. And then we have a two-stepper. Undo addition with subtraction on both sides. So those 6's cancel out, and we get 4y equals 6. And divide each side by 6 or 4. And we have y equals 6/4, which it could also be 3/2. Okay, so we know that our solution, we have an x as 2, and we have a y as 3/2. Okay, so there's just a few examples of what we're talking about today. Hopefully that helped you out a little bit. See ya.